ESPN 94.1 FM and AM 930 present The Drive.
It is Monday. It is March 20th. This is The Drive on ESPN 94.1 and AM 930. My name is Paul Swann. Thanks for being a part of your ride home, or, of course, if you're listening to us at your convenience on our podcast, which is available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcast. We got a lot to get into today. Of course, this is the aftermath of the brackets, and I thought we would talk about that, but I need to start out first with something that came out a few minutes before I hit the air, and I've got the official release from Marshall University's Office of Communications that the Board of Governors is going to meet in emergency session tomorrow. Now, the presser, it reads, the Marshall University Board of Governors will meet online in emergency session at noon Tuesday to consider athletic personnel matters. The athletic committee will convene first and then go into executive session, followed by a meeting of the entire board using the same protocol. So there's going to be a meeting tomorrow. What's it about? All I know is athletic personnel matters. So I've put a couple of feelers out already just to ask for if any insight can be shared. We just found out as of this program, 5:07 p.m., I just found out. So I don't have anything yet. Keep an eye on social media, of course, later on if I don't get anything. But we'll find out hopefully tomorrow what this is going to be about. So, only thing we can do right now is speculate. What's it going to be about? Is there a new hire coming? Well, when you have personnel matters, it's usually a hire or a fire. Right? That's what personnel matters mean. A hire or a fire? So is it a hire or is it a fire? That's all I can do right now is speculate. And you can speculate as well. Text line is open, 304-396-TALK, 304-396-8255. I mean, this could be a pay raise for all I know. Keep that in mind. It might not be fair of me to say, hey, it's going to be a hire or a fire. It could be a pay raise. Someone could be getting paid some extra money. Who knows? But when you see a release come across your email right before you go on the air that says, emergency meeting, consider athletic personnel matters. So what's that going to be about? So tomorrow's going to be interesting for sure. If today already isn't interesting, tomorrow's definitely going to be interesting. Are we going to see maybe a basketball coach hired for women? I'm going down that road a little bit, speculating. Because my candidate, Kim Stevens, Glenville State. Glenville State's still going right now, so too soon for that. And you don't make an announcement like that while the team's still going. We hope that Glenville State goes and wins the D2 title again. That would be fantastic. Texter writes in at 304-396-TALK, 304-396-8255. Come on, this is not rocket science. They're extending D'Antoni's contract. Good point. It could be an extension. That is a very good point. What do you think it's going to be? Again, 304-396-TALK, 304-396-8255. So it could be just something completely simple, like, hey, we're extending Dan D'Antoni's contract. That could be it. We're extending his contract. We're giving him another year. He's agreed to terms. Here it is. So it falls within somebody's getting money. So I have to amend. It's a hire, it's a fire, someone's getting more money. Or an extension, thus more money. Right? All right, so we'll put that on the odds board right now. That's on the odds board. It's going to be about D'Antoni's contract extension. That he's officially coming back. Which, if you were listening last week to our program, we had Marshall University Athletic Director Christian Spears on the show, and he said, hey, Dan's coming back. If he wants to stay, he's coming back. And I would think Dan wants to stay, so he's coming back. So that might be what this is about a little bit. Just extend this, and this could be the formality. So we're going to find out. Or it could be about something else completely. We could all be right. We could all be wrong. It sure makes for interesting radio for the next couple of days. I always love getting something like this right before I go on the air because it just gives me something else to focus on. And, of course, we've got your text coming in, 304-396-TALK, 304-396-8255. That's going to be our text line to be a part of the program. Yeah, there's some other things that are happening with Marshall we're going to get you caught up on, of course. If you've been following all the latest hires and fires and rumors, a lot of different job shuffles going on out there. And one, as far as the football side is concerned, Football Scoop confirming that Marshall University is adding a coach with SEC experience to the tight ends position. Derek Shea is going to be the tight ends coach at Marshall University. This came out through Football Scoop, pretty reliable. And we're seeing more positions added across the country as, we're getting closer to spring ball for a lot of programs. Some programs have already started. So, here you go. More additions to the football program. You have a coach coming in that has experience at Missouri, LSU, other places like that. So that's what we've got as far as some interesting things that came up over the weekend. Baseball, we need to talk about that. We need to talk about softball, obviously. And we need to get your text in, 304-396-TALK, 304-396-8255. That is our text line. What do you think this emergency meeting is about? Think it's going to be a Dan D'Antoni contract extension? Is that what it is? Nothing really outstanding other than, we're doing a contract extension. But I love when they word these things. It's emergency session at noon. It's not anything other than emergency session to consider athletic personnel matters. Well, what do you think it is? Do you think it's the contract or do you think it's something else? 304-396-TALK, 304-396-8255. More coming up on this edition of The Drive. ESPN 94.1 and AM 930.
This is The Drive with Paul Swann on ESPN 94.1 FM and AM 930.
Welcome back to the Monday, March 20th edition, The Drive, ESPN 94.1 and AM 930. My name is Paul Swann. Thanks for tuning in. We're not with us top of the show. Marshall's Board of Governors are going to meet tomorrow. They're going into what is described per the release as an emergency session to consider athletic personnel matters. Probably some contract issues that need to be discussed. The question is it a contract issue for a women's basketball coach or is it a continuation of a contract for Dan D'Antoni? It's interesting. And we're going to have fun speculating, of course, but we'll get the real scoop on this hopefully sooner. If not, we'll get it tomorrow. But until then, you can speculate or chime in. 304-396-TALK, 304-396-8255. But that's not the only thing happening. There's a lot going on. If you've been watching the World Baseball Classic, USA routed Cuba 14-2 to reach the final. I didn't watch much of that. 14-2 is not fun for me. For some, it might be. 14-2 in baseball, not fun for me. But it's got the task to compete with March Madness, and that's where a lot of my attention, when I devoted it to basketball or of sport of any kind, that's where I was at for the most part. And how's your bracket doing, I'm sure, is a question you had a lot of today when you went back to the office, talking to your coworkers, your friends. How's your bracket doing? Of course, in this digital age, we all know if you're in any sort of office pool, you know automatically, unless you're just not paying attention. And the funny thing is, a couple of the people that really don't pay attention in the office here are leading. I'm third. Thankfully, I'm in striking distance. But being third now doesn't mean I'll not be middle of the pack next week. And a lot of interesting upsets. Did anyone see Furman coming? I actually had him on my bracket. But we have some interesting matchups ahead. Kentucky losing, so now, all is not well with Big Blue Nation. All is not well usually with Big Blue Nation. That is a program where if you're not winning the national championship every year, it's a disappointing year. And that's a standard. Might not be a realistic standard, but boy, that is a standard. 304-396-TALK, 304-396-8255. That is our text line. That is the number you can be a part of today's program. Baseball and softball having a go of it in the Sun Belt. Baseball did okay. Got one out of the three against App State. Won its first Sun Belt Conference game on Sunday, 7-5 in the series final over App State. And in the process of that series, it was in the game on Saturday. It was a double in the bottom of the fifth. Luke Edwards became Marshall's baseball all-time leader. 49 career doubles. That's pretty good. And so, milestone for him. Marshall gets a win in the Sun Belt. So, there you go. And then on the softball side, Marshall won its first ever Sun Belt contest, opening league play with an 8-0 win over App State. Did that on Saturday afternoon. The weather was not cooperative, however, so they had to basically cancel the rest of the games or not continue because the weather was just not allowing it. And in the process, Sydney Nestor, she shut out the Mountaineers offense. That's her 14th win of the year and a complete game performance. She struck out 4, 6 hits, struck out 4. Pretty good. So a shutout, you'll take it. So softball doing well. You would love to see that series continue. Softball's rolling right now. And one thing's certain. If you would have told me that the first team championship would have been softball, I might have taken you up on that. I might have taken that action. Like, yeah, I want a piece of that. Because I felt like it would be softball, men's soccer, possibly basketball, and football had a solid chance for me. Those were the 4 I thought had the best chance. And maybe in that order, soccer, softball, then basketball, possibly football, not far behind, would have been the first 4 championships in the Sun Belt. So far, Marshall still looking for its first team championship. I think softball is going to have a legitimate shot here. Absolutely have a legitimate shot at winning the Sun Belt Conference Championship. Regular season, tournament, I know we're just one game into Sun Belt play, but Marshall right now is looking pretty good at 22-3 and 1-0 in Sun Belt play. And Sydney Nestor continues to be a monster out there on the mound. So hopefully Thundering Herd can get some more wins behind her, and we're talking about a championship real soon. But it looked pretty good this weekend for the Thundering Herd. As we were watching, though, basketball and mostly March Madness. I was watching a lot of that, keeping an eye on that. Rick Pitino making news again because he's had a pretty good run, right? As of late, rehabilitating his coaching career. He's agreed to a 6-year deal to become St. John men's basketball coach. So he's going to be coaching for St. John's. So that's official now. I'm not going to lie to you. I like Rick Pitino. Met him once. And I was working at another station at the time. I was not the host. I was the producer. And he came in with a book. He was in the area, so he was doing the radio tour, came in. I mean, here, he's Rick Pitino. I mean, he was a pretty big deal then. This is early on in my career, but still big deal. And he flat out said, no, I'm not going to the NBA. Flat out said, no, I'm not going to the NBA. And then what's he do not that long after? He goes to the NBA. Still liked Rick Pitino. I was a Rick Pitino fan. I think if he would have stayed in college, the legacy would have been even greater. But now, as it stands, still one of the best coaches of all time in college basketball as far as I'm concerned. I don't know. Maybe he could make a run at St. John's. That's not a bad place to try to make a run. A serious run at the NCAA, that's not a bad place to do so. Honestly, I think in basketball, if you're a league like the Big East, you're a big time league. If you're a league like the American, you got a serious shot. And don't look now, but FAU's in the Sweet 16. The American's not going to hurt too bad in basketball. Absolutely not. And as you watch the Sweet 16 with FAU in it, as a Herd fan, how does that make you feel? Are there emotions that we need to talk about today? We need to go over some of that? Process some of that? Figure it out? How do you feel about that? FAU is in the Sweet 16. Whereas Marshall did not get postseason this year. You move to the Sun Belt. Much tougher league for football, for basketball. Competitive, but not exactly what you had in the league you just left. And I'm not saying that top to bottom, that Conference USA is that much better than the Sun Belt. I felt that the Sun Belt was very competitive. I think Marshall should be competitive in the Sun Belt for many years to come. It's a league that hopefully will get better in basketball, get a better reputation. But at the same time, you got to look back and just go, wait a minute here. All these Conference USA teams are doing all right. They're doing all right here right now in the postseason. Especially FAU. FAU did not do my bracket any favors. I think I had them out. I think they had them as a one and done. That is what I selected. I have Houston, though. I don't know if that's a good choice or not. It wasn't Purdue. There are 7 people in our bracket that are out. A lot of them have Purdue. I have Houston. I have UCLA still, and I have Alabama. I need Houston to win out, and I'm going to be sitting pretty. So, did not have FAU in my brackets. A couple people did. I was not that person. I just don't think I could have put them down. It's FAU. Seriously. Marshall was better than FAU, and now look at FAU. So that kind of, I have some words about that. We'll take your text at 304-396-TALK, 304-396-8255. Texter writes in a little sarcasm. Texter thinks that they know what the emergency session is tomorrow to discuss or consider, use the proper term, consider athletic personnel updates. Texter says, and I'm hoping this is sarcasm, one of the keyboard coaches from Herd Fans is being hired to replace Dan D'Antoni. I don't think that's true. I'm going to need to see a resume. You can text in as well, 304-396-TALK, 304-396-8255. Besides, I would think Twitter would have more of a standing than a message board. Remember, message boards used to be really huge, and then now they're not. Because of sports Twitter. It used to be that you wanted to get the latest on everything, you go to a message board. And now, you got people still posting there, but it's not message boards. It's Twitter. I mean, Facebook for a while, but it's Twitter. You can find me on Twitter, by the way, at Paul Swann. More coming up. It's The Drive, ESPN 94.1 and AM 930.
This is The Drive with Paul Swann on ESPN 94.1 FM and AM 930.
Our Twitter line is open. Our text line is open as well, but wherever it's easy for you to be a part of today's program. I'm there for you at Twitter. Actually, at Twitter, on Twitter, at Paul Swann. Text line is 304-396-TALK, 304-396-8255. We've been taking your text, and I've got some of your tweets to read here in a second as well. We started the show with news coming out of Marshall University's Office of University Communications alerting us to a meeting tomorrow, emergency meeting to consider athletic personnel matters. No insight yet from sources or direct from the athletic department. Nothing yet that I've got, but we've been speculating. Some have speculated or have said that it's simply Dan D'Antoni's contract. That seems to be the prevailing thought on Twitter, but for most of you, you're saying that you think it's either going to be a new women's basketball coach hire or a finalization of the rollover of Dan D'Antoni's contract. Could be a combination of both. I was hoping that it would be Kim Stevens that would be the first and only candidate for this thing, because after all, she's done an amazing job at Glenville State because she'd be ready for the next level. Already won the Division II title last year. And guess what? Still in it. But with the situation with West Virginia losing its women's basketball coach, so could WVU be in play? Who knows? But right now, as it stands, would it be Kim Stevens? I'm not thinking it's Kim Stevens. If it's women's basketball, it can't be. She's coaching right now. I don't think the university would drop this while the coach is still in the hunt for a national championship. I would think after the coach becomes available, either after winning a national championship or being eliminated from the postseason, you would make a hire. I don't think you would do something like this. So if it is women's basketball, if this is what this meeting is about tomorrow, it's not going to be Kim Stevens. I could be totally wrong on that, and I'm willing to say that right now. I mean, who knows? Maybe there's an agreement, like, look, once the tournament's over for Glenville State, the next women's basketball coach is going to be Kim Stevens. But I don't think they would do that. I don't think that would be proper. And I don't think Glenville State would like that. I don't think Marshall would want to take anything away from Glenville State. So if it is women's basketball, maybe it's someone else that we haven't thought of yet. Or it could be as simple as Dan D'Antoni getting a rollover on his contract, and this is just going to be the meeting to make it formal. And, of course, if you were with us last week, Christian Spears, Marshall's athletic director, on the program with me, basically said, Dan's coming back. He said a lot of things. If you haven't listened to that yet, do yourself a favor. Go listen to it. Listen to everything he said. We had a fun day. He dropped a lot of things on us, especially the whole, if Dan wants to come back, he's coming back. Basically said Andy's coming back. And I hope that remains, and I think that's going to be the case. Andy's coming back, Andrew Taylor. And also not a fan of Sunbelt officiating. And we hadn't talked about this since, because we had NCAA tournament taking me off the air the final couple of days of the week. But we didn't talk much about that. Is the athletic director does not like the officiating in the Sun Belt. It was great for the show. It was great for me for him to say that. It's fantastic that he said that. Fantastic. Some of you thought, wait a minute, why is he saying that? He shouldn't be saying that. And to you, Paul, because you know what I do. We broadcast this show. People hear it, then they talk about it. Or they go back to the podcast and they hear it. And right now, I'm sure that there are Sunbelt officials listening to the show, listening to the podcast. Oh, he said what, huh? Nah, I don't know if there's anything that nefarious. But yeah, some good stuff on that show. But we know Dan's coming back. And is it going to be what this is about tomorrow, or is it going to be about new women's basketball coach? Or it could be a combination of both. It could be completely different. It could be something else altogether. Because I'm really not going to talk much about it because it's a personnel matter that it involves athletics, but at the same time, there hasn't been an official statement from Marshall University on this. And, the only thing I can say is that I found out earlier today that Zach Littleton, no longer with the athletic department. He was director of equipment services, his last official title for Olympic sports. And he posted something on his personal Facebook page to talk about, why he's no longer at Marshall. And I don't think that there's any personnel. I don't know if this meeting has anything to do with new personnel coming in that's not coaching related, but I will throw it out there. Again, total speculation, but I'm not going to talk too much about it because, of course, Zach made a statement. He spoke to all his friends, and Marshall University hasn't issued a statement on it. And to be honest, personnel come and go at Marshall University all the time. But I think it's fair to mention only because Zach, a lot of people knew him. He's involved with athletics for a long time at Marshall University, and he had a great reputation as far as I'm concerned. I didn't have the interactions with him that maybe I should have had. I didn't know him as well as some others, but always a great guy, always good to me when I did interact with him. I had no problem with him whatsoever. So he did release a statement on his personal Facebook page that he's no longer with the athletic department. So I don't know if this meeting has anything to do with that as far as, different personnel not related to coaching, or it is coaching. We'll figure it out. Our text lines 304-396-TALK, 304-396-8255, and you can find me on Twitter at Paul Swann. Yeah, it's basketball pretty much. Women's or men's basketball. That seems to be the prevailing speculation and thought about this one. So watch it be something else tomorrow. We'll find out. It's going to be something completely different. But if it's about women's basketball, the only thing I can say is I don't think it's going to be. I could be wrong. Outside shot. I was hoping that maybe, just maybe, Kim Stevens, Glenville State, Marshall figured out how to land her as the next coach of Marshall women's basketball after Tony Kemper leaving the university. Sort of a similar situation with what's going on with West Virginia's basketball program now, making it a decision, not about the program itself, but about personal situations, and I respect that 100%. We will get your text in again, 304-396-TALK, 304-396-8255. We got more coming up. It's The Drive, ESPN 94.1 and AM 930.
This is The Drive with Paul Swann on ESPN 94.1 FM and AM 930.
Our text line is still open this hour, 304-396-TALK. That's 304, it's 396-8255. You can also find me on Twitter at Paul Swann. Welcome back to The Drive. This is Monday, March 20th. Kicking off your week. Hope you had a great weekend. Hope you got to do something else other than sit and watch basketball. I mean, if that's your thing, I'm not going to hate on it. Got outside a little bit. Especially Kentucky fans, I hope you got outside a little bit. After Kentucky was eliminated from the tournament, I hope you got to do something else. Walk it off. Get that off your mind. Losing to Kansas State 75-69. I know that wasn't a good feeling. So the season's over. Not a good feeling. I get it. Understand. So if you were frustrated, and let me tell you right now, I didn't stay on social media much, but when I did get on, some of you were mad and did need to get outside. Mad that Duke lost. Mad that WVU, well, that was the other day, but yeah, you were mad that WVU lost. You were mad that Kansas lost. You were mad that Duke, some of you were happy, but you were mad that Duke lost. You were mad that FAU won. It was as if it was a personal offense to you. I had to log off. I couldn't do it. I just couldn't do it. Not doing it. But I did watch some of it. It was fun. And we had the games here, of course. That made it easy for me. We had the games on ESPN 94.1 and AM 930, so you had a chance to listen to the feed sort of background as I was trying to get some other things done. And, I do hope you enjoyed your weekend, though. And we'll get right back at it as the tournament will continue. And we were down to 16, and after the weekend, we'll have our Final Four set and all of that action here on ESPN 94.1 and AM 930. So we'll get more of your text in again. That's 304-396-TALK, 304-396-8255. On Twitter, it is Paul Swann, at Paul Swann. I think probably the biggest news we've been talking about today is it's more of a wait and see game what happens. But earlier today, as I was getting ready to come on to the show, the press release went out that the Marshall University Board of Governors going to meet online in an emergency session at noon tomorrow to consider athletic personnel matters. Not singular, plural. So I'm hoping that it's more than one thing, and we're going to find out. Hopefully, we'll get some insight about what this is all about, and we'll talk about it tomorrow on the show as well. But we've been speculating a little bit what it could be. Some of you say, hey, it's real simple. It's about Dan D'Antoni. Some of you think, hey, it's going to be the women's basketball coach. It could be one of those things. It could be both of those things. It could be something else completely different. I don't know. It could be, additional personnel being hired. It could be shuffling of personnel, new people coming in, not related to coaching. I would think, though, for something like this, do you have an emergency session just to roll over Dan's contract? I would think you're like, okay, is that really, if that's what it is, it's just a simple formality. They could have just said, hey, we're just rolling this thing over. We're going to meet in session tomorrow. We're going to roll it over to see if but instead, you generate all this speculation, which is fine for me. I'm good with it. Generate all this buzz and speculation. What can it be about? Somebody's going to be right. Somebody's going to be wrong. It could be all of us are right. All of us are wrong. But those are the two prevailing thoughts right now. And until otherwise told, it could be all those things. It could be none of those things. So it would be great, though, if tomorrow was settling the women's basketball issue. But again, part of the problem here with that is if it's women's basketball, I don't know the candidate. And if it's about women's basketball, it's too soon for me. Only because I was hoping it would be Kim Stevens from Glenville State. She's generating a lot of buzz because of the success she's had at Glenville State. And so we're going to have to spend some money if it's going to be her. Think about it. You're going to have to spend some money to bring her in. 304-396-TALK, 304-396-8255. That's our text line to be a part of today's edition of The Drive here on ESPN 94.1 and AM 930. And, of course, you can find me on Twitter at any time at Paul Swann. Bengals news quickly for today. The latest additions, free agency. The Bengals today signed unrestricted free agent safety Nick Scott to a 3-year contract through the 2025 season. Also, the Bengals re-signed unrestricted free agent guard Max Sharping to a 1-year contract for the 2023 season. I don't have the details of the re-sign, but 3-year contract for Nick Scott, that's pretty good. I think the Bengals are doing all right in free agency so far. We'll see. It's always a gamble, but you got to get ready to pay your guy. Joe Burrow. He's got to get paid. You got to pay his favorite wide receivers, and you got to protect him. And you got to make some decisions. You're gonna build through the draft. Are you going to get some veteran guys in? If you're going to spend some money, are there going to be substantial upgrades? Are you going to overpay for anyone? And I don't think they're doing that so far. It seems like it's been working out pretty good. So free agency continues for the Cincinnati Bengals. Don't forget, if you need a reminder, all those games all season long right here on ESPN 94.1 and AM 930. Pretty good show today. I appreciate it. I think everyone has been pretty good. We, of course, will have a lot to talk about tomorrow. We got Marshall baseball heading to Cincinnati tomorrow, taking on the Bearcats. Marshall's 9-8. The Bearcats are 8-12. I hope that the Herd can carry over some of the success against App State into Cincinnati. Of course, softball getting ready for midweek softball action as well. They're looking pretty good. They beat App State 8-0. That's a way to. That's an announcement. You have announced your arrival. If any team has made an announcement, it is softball with that. Just with an 8-0 shellacking of App State at App State. Just announcing we're here. And Marshall is 1-0 in Sun Belt play. So they're looking pretty good. So we got a lot of that to get into. And, of course, we'll hopefully have more to go on tomorrow before, but definitely after this Board of Governors online emergency session. It's at noon to consider athletic personnel matters. The athletic committee will convene and then go into executive session. So the committee will convene, come out, and then you'll have the full board getting together, doing its thing. And we'll talk about it tomorrow here on ESPN 94.1 and AM 930. So what's it going to be? What's it going to be? Is it going to be, as we've speculated, a basketball contract for men? An extension for Dan D'Antoni? Is it going to be a new women's basketball coach being hired and then announced? Is it going to be none of the above? Will it be both? It's going to be fun. We'll be speculating for a while on this one. And, of course, we'll figure it out hopefully before tomorrow. Somebody somewhere will talk, and we will figure it out. We're definitely going to be talking about it tomorrow. So I'm excited. That's going to be our Tuesday show, but today was fun. Thanks for tuning in. I appreciate it. I do appreciate everyone being a part of today's edition of the program. My name is Paul Swann. This has been The Drive on ESPN 94.1 and AM 930. And if you just tuned in, you're new to the show, you can always find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your podcast. You can get a copy of today's show. It's commercial free, by the way. Don't tell anyone I said that. It's commercial free. So you can listen to the show at your convenience. But if you can, please come back. Come back tomorrow, 5:06 here on ESPN 94.1 and AM 930. And until then, have a great night.
WRBC Huntington, W227BS Huntington, your flagship home of the Marshall Thundering Herd and The Drive with Paul Swann, ESPN 94.1 FM and AM 930.